We want to reflect Indianapolis internally and externally. The things we cover, we want to reflect. We want to show Indianapolis who we are, good and the bad. So, and if there's a bad, what can we do to fix, to improve? How can we be the best Indianapolis we can be? I started writing obituaries. Part-time, I worked in the evenings. You learn brevity, you learn accuracy. You know, this is the last thing that someone's loved one will have about this person that, you know, in their life. So it's very important to get it right. I think about small stories that are small to us as journalists, right? But are huge to community members, because that's really who we're here for. We're serving our community.
What drives someone to change the world? Welcome to Social Trailblazers, where we seek to answer just that question. Join Kelly Hernandez, CEO of Nonprofit Marketing Nerds, as she interviews leading social innovators and nonprofit changemakers. This podcast is brought to you by DonorBox, the easiest way for nonprofits to rock their online donations.
I am so grateful to have you as a born and bred Hoosier. I am so grateful for all the work that you do in Indianapolis and have really trailblazed what I would call bringing to light many of the stories that need to be brought to light within a lot of different arenas, but for me, especially in Indianapolis. I know you have an extensive career in journalism, and that's probably an understatement. How did you start working in journalism?
High school, actually, that's when I started. So I told my dad I wanted to be a journalist in fourth grade. And my daddy was like, "Do you even know what a journalist is?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." So, and then I had a friend who started working for the high school paper, and I didn't realize they had that was a thing that I could do. So I was like, well, I need to be there. So I started working at the high school paper and yearbook in high school, obviously. And then I majored in journalism at my alma mater, Ball State University in Muncie. Chirp. So, I mean, that's how I got started. Then I started working at my local newspaper, my hometown paper in Muncie. Back then it was the Star Press. I'm sorry, back then it was the Muncie Star. It hadn't merged yet. So there were two papers, evening paper and a morning paper. I worked at the morning paper, the Muncie Star. And then they eventually merged when I was in college with the evening press and became the Star Press, which is still there today.
Oh, wow. And you said you started working there. What was your first gig in journalism?
Copy clerk.
Okay.
Copy clerk. So copy clerk no longer exists. One of those dinosaur jobs now. But yeah, I started writing obituaries. Part-time. I worked in the evenings. I came in like 4:30 and worked till like 11 o'clock at night. So I did obituaries and news briefs. So that's how I got started. And I was a sophomore in college when I first started.
Oh, wow. And I've did a little bit of research on your career, but that's, starting off as a copy clerk and where you are now, as editor-in-chief of the Mirror Indy. Like, wow, what change, growth, right? How many pathways did you go down to get there? I would love to pick your brain a little, if that's okay. Talk a little bit about, how do you think you got there?
Well, now that you say that, I did start at the bottom of the barrel. Copy clerk is very entry level. And I left off, one of my jobs was making coffee. So that tells you how far along we've come for entry level. When I first came in afternoon, I had to make the coffee. And I don't drink coffee, never have. And so I had to make coffee for people and I never drank a cup of it. And eventually I decided I was no longer doing that. Eventually I said, I'm done with this coffee making stuff. Y'all can make your own coffee because I don't drink it. But my path though has been kind of circular, winding, because I was out of journalism for a little bit. My very first full-time job was not a journalism job. It was at a catalog publishing company. So I thought it was going to kind of merge so in college, we had what we called sequences, and I did news editorial and magazine in journalism. So I thought the catalog publishing company was going to be more of the magazine side of things. It was not. It was not at all. It
Oh, wow.
was not. So I needed to get back into journalism. And then my first full-time job as a reporter was at the Indianapolis Recorder, which is 129-year-old, I believe it's 129-year-old African-American owned, a Black-owned newspaper serving the Black community of Indianapolis, and started in 1895. So that was my first reporter full-time job. That's when I thought, okay, I'm actually a full-time reporter now. So then I went back though back to the Star Press as a full-time reporter. So I've done a lot of things, but mainly at the same two places, really.
Right. That's how I think that's how people say, how do you get a promotion? You go somewhere else, right? And then you come back and you're teaching people that you're an example of that, right?
Yes.
There was that. Oh, that's too funny. And you were, and I think it's important to bring to light that, as an African American owned newspaper, the Indianapolis Recorder, it's actually the nation's fourth oldest.
Yeah.
It was such a pivotal. It's so historically pivotal. Can you talk a little bit more about maybe challenges you faced while working at the Indianapolis Recorder in local media in Indianapolis that you're willing to share?
Well, do you want me to talk about it as a reporter or as an editor? Because I came back there too as editor.
I would love. I think people always love the boots on the ground. How about as a reporter?
So as a reporter, I don't think I recognize the challenges back then. When you're young and you're just happy to have a job in journalism, especially doing a thing I wanted to do, doing a thing I went to school for, and I said I wanted to do in fourth grade, and now I'm doing this job. I don't think I really thought about any real challenges other than just being a journalist. I think part of the, I guess looking back, a challenge was we were a young staff. Mm-hmm. And when you have a young staff, when you have a young editor, there are so many things you don't know. There are so many questions you cannot get answered because you don't even know to even ask those questions, or no one even has those answers. So definitely, I think experience matters. And it really wasn't until I became an editor that I really started looking at my path as a reporter and thinking about all the things that helped me, in a copy clerk helped me in ways that today's young people miss out on, because learning how to write an obituary teaches you a lot of things. Mm-hmm. You learn brevity, you learn accuracy. This is the last thing that someone's loved one will have about this person that, in their life. So it's very important to get it right.
Uh-huh.
And I remember my Metro editor, when I didn't get it right, called me into the conference room and had to have a talk with me about my mistakes in the obituary. And if I did I really want to do this job? Did I want to have this career? And if I did, how I couldn't make mistakes like this. And, I kind of said, well, it was just, he was like, no, it's not. It was just. And so years later, about 5 years ago or so, I talked to him about that. I got a chance to talk to him again. And I told him about that. And he was so apologetic, because I almost started crying when I left that room. I was almost in tears, I really have messed up. And so when I told him how much that affected me, he apologized. And I said, no, it hurt, but I needed to hear that. So I need to understand how serious this is. And it made me get myself together. And I realized, oh, okay, we don't play games here. You need to take accuracy. You need to take this job seriously, because you're dealing with people's lives.
This episode is brought to you by DonorBox, the online fundraising platform that streamlines your process, elevates your donations, and ensures a user-friendly experience for your supporters. Explore the world of simplified, seamless fundraising at DonorBox.org today.
I often talk about it in nonprofit marketing nerds, good stress versus bad stress, right? And that seems like that was sounds like to you a very memorable moment that maybe changed the trajectory, because you're you doubled down on accuracy and precision based on that conversation. Huh.
It definitely shaped me as a reporter, as a journalist. I had a lot of editors who uh, asked tough questions. Who sometimes when you're young, you think like, okay, they think I'm dumb, or they're just asking me dumb questions just to ask me questions. And there's a time when that does happen, and you start figuring it out. But sometimes they're asking you questions because you didn't put that information in the story. You didn't ask that question. There are definitely questions that when you're young, you don't think to ask. Right. And your editor is there to help you ask those questions and go back and say, I did miss that important piece of information. Or when you're writing a story and you have all this information in your head, you think you have it down. You think you said it in the story and it's not there, or it needs to be said very plainly. So, looking back on things now, I'm seeing the path and how all the dots connect, and how like I was set up for this by doing this. Okay, now I see that set me up for this. I have this knowledge that I didn't have before. Now I have this knowledge, and now it's all giving you this. When they say your steps are ordered, and you can look back and see them like, yeah, they really are.
Yeah. And, you now are the editor-in-chief of the Mirror Indy. And I know that for many of our listeners or viewers, they're not based in Indianapolis. I know you and I are both Midwesterners. But what is Mirror Indy?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We're a nonprofit newsroom. So we actually launched December 5th, 2023. So our 1-year anniversary is coming up. So by the time this airs, we'll have had our 1-year anniversary party and celebrated our 1 year of existence. So I actually came aboard in August of 2023. So when I say nonprofit newsroom and we launched, we started from scratch.
Wow.
We started from, there was this idea. So about 3 years ago, some philanthropists came together with this idea of how to how to fill the voids and the gaps in local news coverage. Because as we know, there's not enough local news being reported. That is one of the things that people were saying. They found it in their research. People really wanted local news. They really, really wanted to know how to connect with my community, how to connect with the place I live. And so came up with Mirror Indy. And we were called Indiana Local News Initiative. That was our original name, but that was a placeholder name until we could figure out what we wanted to be called. So, and we broke off into Free Press Indiana. It's our support organization. They're like the business side of the house, and they are tasked with creating other newsrooms. We're the first newsroom of Free Press Indiana, Mirror Indiana. And we chose the name Mirror to reflect. We want to reflect Indianapolis internally and externally. The things we cover, we want to reflect. We want to show Indianapolis who we are, the good and the bad. So, and if there's a bad, what can we do to fix, to improve? How can we be the best Indianapolis we can be? And that means reflection shows everything, right? We don't always like, what we see in the mirror, but there are days when we're like, okay, I look good today, Yeah. And there are days you're like, we got some things we need to work on. So we want to show the full spectrum of our city. And one of the goals that I have is to not just help people survive, but to help them thrive. How do we help you thrive in our city that we love?
I think it's so cool. Again, we're recording this before your 1 year. Like that's, I would say, that's what people typically think of as a baby or startup nonprofit. But can you talk a little bit more? When we hopped on before people saw you, were talking about which room you were going into, right? What's your current size? And can you talk a little bit more about what impact or reach you're making right now at Mirror Indy?
So our current size is we are actually in a co-working space. So everything we do is intentional. So we wanted to be in a place that was accessible to the community. And we thought about location. How can people in the community get to us, and we get to them as well. And so a lot of times the people think, oh, let's go downtown. Downtown is not really accessible to community members. It has this theory that it is, but no one wants to deal with parking. That is like the worst thing about most downtowns is parking. No one wants to deal with parking. And then when you park, you have to figure out, first of all, where to park. Then you have to walk to where we have to go because there's usually no parking right by it. We're like, you know what, let's eliminate that process and just get someplace that we thought was closer to people. So we're on a bus route.
Okay.
And we're in a co-working space attached to a food hall. So we often have what we call our chat and choose in the afternoon during lunch, where our community journalism director, Ariana Beatty, she goes out and sits out there in the food hall and just meets with people who come by and they talk. Reporters go out there and talk, editors. So it's just like we just actually meet community. So we are 20, we're a newsroom of 20. And then Free Press Indiana, I believe there's 8 on the Free Press Indiana side. So our newsroom is 20 people, and we're all in one space together. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations. I think to me and to you, like, congratulations. Something like a very large, people hear startup, they don't think, or just a year ago. That's amazing. And I know that especially with community focused, community centered mirroring journalism, having you need a big enough team to tell at least some of the stories, right? That sounds amazing.
Yeah. And it's big, but it's not big. Journalism terms, like, it's not big. And our traffic, we started from 0, obviously.
Right.
So we are growing by leaps and bounds. We try not to get too caught up in numbers, but I will say our numbers are very, very good when we look at our traffic numbers. But we're also very much concerned about impact. Mm-hmm. And when I say impact, so we care about numbers because that means we're reaching people. We're reaching our audience, our target audience. But we also care about the impact of what our content has on people. Call to action. Is it helping you to become a better person? Is it helping you to learn more about your city? Is it helping you to even go out to an event that you didn't know existed? It's even on that granular level. We have we have a service reporter, but we think of everything we do as a service. We are a service organization. We are here to serve the residents of Indianapolis. And so we just recently had an article based on like parking. How do you find parking when you're downtown? We had an article explainer just on parking. We had Taylor Swift came last weekend.
My brother and his kids were there.
and that's great. But what about people who didn't want to go, or who couldn't afford to go, or who just they couldn't get tickets? What do they do? Like, they deserve to have some fun too. So we had an article for people who, if you're not going to see Taylor, what can you do this weekend? So we think about things like that too. So it's not just like services you're in need of something, and we have that, but it's also services of like, just how can we help you just have a good life?
Nonprofit and association leaders, I've got a secret weapon for you. Imagine sitting down for just 30 minutes, yes, 30, and walking away with a treasure chest of marketing gold. Polished videos, scroll-stopping reels, compelling blogs, and share-worthy social posts. That's the Content Lab, where our team of marketing nerds transforms your mission into magic. You bring your expertise, and we'll handle the rest. Ready to feel like a marketing wizard? Visit nonprofit-nerd.com and check out the Content Lab. Type discount 200 at checkout to grab your $200 discount. Limited time only. Catch you in the lab. The Content Lab.
And I think it's, as a nonprofit, these are unique things, right? As something that was funded by philanthropy and community need. You talk about Free Press. You talk about the fact that the business structure is separate from the media. These are unique things in the media space, correct? That makes it's very special and very, I would guess, versatile in telling stories that need to be told, right? You're not chasing around the money all the time, which often happens in media. How is Mirror Indy different because of how you're set up from maybe big media sources or nationwide ones?
Well, so we're still chasing the money because we're in a different way. So our business model is donations versus advertising. Mm-hmm. That is our business model, and that's the difference. And that's why we're a nonprofit. Is we are supported by philanthropists, donations, large and small gifts. Regular people donate $5, $10, whatever they can have, as well as big gifts from sponsors and corporations and foundations, endowments. So we're supporting them that way too. But Every dollar matters. Every dollar matters. And so how we're not, it's different. It's different, but you still, I think as the editor in chief, I think about money more than I ever did I know I think about money more than I ever did as reporters. As a reporter, I didn't think about it at all. I didn't care. It just was magic and it just appeared. And now, and now when you actually have to be concerned about the budget, you think about, well, how are we going to pay for this? How much does this cost? How much does that cost? And you think about, okay, donation is very good. Getting donations is very important. And for us as a team, many of us come from traditional news backgrounds, so we we had that split of advertising over here and reporters are over here, news over here. Now we understand much more the connection of our chief development officer and how he's going out raising funds to support our work. It's a different kind of connection. And when you really see that it's not about dollars for profit, it's about dollars so we can keep doing journalism, that we can keep working toward protecting democracy and being the fourth estate. It gives you a little more purpose. And that's why I say we're a service organization, just as much as we're a journalism publication, because we are here to actually do the things that journalism has said it's going to do forever, that we went to school to do. We went to school for these things, and now we actually have a way to do it that the money supports that versus feeling like sometimes the money goes against that. Every dollar goes to support the important work we do. And our chief development officer, I'm glad I don't have his job, but he amplifies our work and highlights our work. And it's just very gratifying to see that the work we do, people say, hey, I want to support that. I want to support that. It's very gratifying.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. And I it's funny because you're also talking about development work to a development person. I'm like, yeah, it is. It's a job. It's a different job than yours. I think you also have quite a, I would claim more important, and I don't want to put development people back, but we only exist because of the work you do, right?
Well, it goes both ways. We only exist because
that's true.
We can't exist if you don't raise the money.
Yeah,
we'll have to create the product for you. It works both ways. We can't have one without the other.
Yeah. So, you're a year in, or almost a year in terms of this talk. I'd love to hear, maybe one story or project that you've been especially proud of. I know you've gotten a lot of awards as a journalist yourself, but now you're, leading the team. What's a story or project you've been especially proud of?
Oh, geez. I'm just so proud of everything we've done. But in particular, I think about some of our bigger projects. We did Green Lawn Cemetery. It was a historic cemetery that a lot of Indianapolis' first Black residents were buried in. And it's been redeveloped over and over. And pretty much the history was pretty much lost. It had people in the community not thought about it, and it was going to be turned to a soccer stadium. So another layer of redevelopment, and community members have been talking about it and fighting against it for a while. And we commissioned art for the story. We actually told the story through the community members' voices and their eyes, as well as people who may have been buried there. So we created vignettes and just amazing artwork. And then based on that reporting, the city decided they're not going to, they're backing out of that soccer stadium deal. So then we had what we call our trapped article. Is we talked about one of our current mayor's administrator in his administration having improper relationships with employees, and so we did that story, and some of that reporting. Well, the women, one of them went on record, and who was anonymous in the Indy Star story, and then so we actually had her on record, and And based on our reporting, he just kept things going, the cycle going, because he had already lost his job based on the Indy Star's first article. They covered it first, and he got fired from that job. But then we followed up with some more in-depth reporting, and just more things started happening. More people holding the mayor to account, and investigations happening. So just so proud. But even those are big stories, right? Those are big stories. But I think about small stories that are small to us as journalists, right? But are huge to community members, because that's really who we're here for. We're serving our community. So I think about a story that was about an East Side laundromat who opens themselves up for free on Tuesdays, so people can come and do laundry on Tuesdays for free. And when you think about like that impact, how amazing is that? Like not taking anything away from our big stories. Mm-hmm. But we think about like, that's where people live right there. Getting my laundry done and able to do it for free, especially if I'm in a situation where money's tight, or I don't even have a home and I just want clean clothes, clean underwear, like that is clean socks. Like that is a huge deal to people. And that's inspiring to me. And not only do they offer the laundry services for free, but they also have resources available. So other nonprofits come and set up shop and table and offer resources. So if you need help or you need assistance, here's a way, here's a connection. So that is so major. That is just like, that gets me excited. Like, this is why we're here.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe the specific story you're talking about, we found a few weird connections today, are some of nonprofit marketing intern's clients actually set up in the laundromat you're talking about. Yeah, I've heard this before. This is strange. Oh, small world. I want to thank you so much, not just for you, but for your team. You know, I think that for Indianapolis, it's such an amazing thing. It sounds like for a model in Indiana, which is a state that you and I, as Hoosiers, right, hold very close to our heart. I'm, curious to see as Mirror Indy grows, what models does that develop? Because you are right on the forefront, on the cutting edge for other communities. It's really amazing what you're doing and for your team. And I'm also so privileged to have this time with you. So thank you for trusting me, because I know typically journalists don't share their own story that often. So I appreciate you sharing a little bit more about you and about Mirror Indy. If people want to connect with you or follow up or donate, and I was going to joke, or donate, and I didn't even know this, via donor box to Mirror Indy, where can they find you and where should they go?
mirrorindy.org.
Okay. Awesome.
mirrorindy.org. And we're on all social. Well, I shouldn't say all social. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Yeah. And our colors are different. So you should be able to find us really easily. This hot pink, magenta, our fluorescent green, our fluorescent blue, like you'll know when you find us.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time. And thank you to Mirror Indy for all you do in Indianapolis and for being a social trailblazer.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Social Trailblazers. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who are passionate about making a difference. Special thanks to our sponsor, Donor Box, for supporting this podcast and the incredible work of nonprofits everywhere. Join us next time as we continue to dive deep into the motivations of the change makers shaping our world. Until then, keep trailblazing.